This is a longer poem today. I hope I don't have to point that out because you read it already. We're not going to be able to read it in class. It's just way too long. It would take forever. Instead, what we're going to do, very quickly and succinctly, is kind of sum this thing up, right? Body and soul. And if you haven't already, I see some of you have, very good. If you have not, go ahead and pull it up. I mentioned last time, again, to self-scout a little bit, if having it up on a screen doesn't do it for you for some reason, if it's just flying over your head, try printing it out one day. You might be surprised. But for me, just actually having it really helps. Anyway, body and soul. What's the poem about? What happens? Like, how do we start? If you look at those first couple lines, maybe that'll help jog your memory. How's this poem open? Is it fun?
Yes.
Sweet. How's the poem start, guys?
Talking about being drunk.
I think is it half drunk?
Yeah.
Half numb, guzzling bourbon and Coke from coffee mugs. That's a hell of an image to start. We don't have a whole lot of time, probably. I mean, we'll see how class goes, to talk about that first line. But that first line, you know a whole lot about these kinds of people. The kind of person that would drink Jack and Coke from a coffee mug. That is a very specific person. Anyway. Yeah? Who's drinking? It's on the next line. Who's drinking?
Fathers.
Our fathers. So, older gentlemen, yeah? And they're telling stories. In this particular case, a story, right? What's the story that we read about? What goes on? This is the part where I grow concerned.
A story about Sandlot baseball in Commerce.
Cool.
Oklahoma.
So you're playing baseball in Commerce, Oklahoma, wherever that is, right? Anything interesting happen in that game? How's that game go? I mean, there's got to be a reason we're hearing this story, right? All right, here's what we're about to do. I have closed my eyes. I do not cheat when I do this. Okay? By show of hands, how many people read the poem? Just raise your hand. I'm going to have one of you count because I'm not going to look. I'm not going to cheat. Okay? Raise your hands for me. Who read the poem? How many we got?
5.
5?
5.
About 4.5.
All right. You put your hands down. Okay. I'm so angry. Not like I'm like real hot about it, but like I'm not fucking happy, man. Okay. Sidebar. And then we'll figure out whatever we're gonna do about this mess. I actually meant to start class with this and I forgot. So on the one hand, I'm glad you reminded me. I graded your first homeworks. I put the grades up this morning. Homework is 15% of your grade, so it's sizable. You know, it's not nothing. It's a letter grade and a half. But it's more often than not just participating, just turning stuff in when it's due, right? And I think most of you did the first homework, but I looked at it. The second homework was fewer folks. And the good news, you know, is we're early enough in the semester. If you didn't get one of those 2 homework assignments turned in, you can come back from it. Nobody's in a hole yet, okay? The bad news is, the other way to spin that, we're really early in the semester. It's not like you're gonna get more enthusiastic as we go. So, if we're like, 3 days into proper class now, something like that, and you're already kind of checking out, it just doesn't bode well for your prospects. I try to be honest with students, you know? It's not gonna go well. To wit, in a class about writing and about reading, because that's what we're writing about, if you don't read, you're fucked. Like, that's it. You're fucked. And I know some people don't like those words, but that is the most accurate way I can put it. But that is an accurate statement. And hardship of hardships, it's almost 3 pages, what I had you read for today. Almost 3 pages. I know. Not to mention that it only takes up half the damn page. But I think you got the magic in you. I think you can do it, you know? And maybe you forgot. Maybe some of you forgot. Don't. It's on syllabus. You got reminders on course, like it's everywhere. If you walk into any class, this is honestly, I like to give students advice. If you walk into any class and at any point you think, I didn't do anything, you should be worried. Most classes anyway, you gotta do something to prepare, you know? Okay. Those 5 of you, raise your hands.
That's a little bit more than 5.
You don't call yourselves out. We're not trying to do that. I was double checking the number. I don't know what a little more than 5 means. All right. Here's what we're gonna do, I guess. What we can't do is have class. We can't. There's no way to do it. What I could do, I've done this before, I don't think I'm gonna do it today, but what I could do is ask everyone who did not read to leave. Because there's no reason for you to be here. And I mean that. That sounds mean. That's the truth. If you didn't read, you'll have no idea what we're talking about. So nothing we talk about will help you. You'll just be confused. That's not helpful. I'm not going to do that today. That said, I will do it next time. I will. So there's that. As far as what we're going to do, I guess today's going to be a shorter class. It's going to be a shorter class. So maybe that's a silver lining. What to tell you? I guess I'll talk about the poem generally. I'll have some closing thoughts for you. Basically how this is going to go. And especially if you did happen to read the poem. I don't want to ever punish people who did their fucking work. If you want to chime in at any point, or if you have questions, or if you have thoughts, share those. For real. Otherwise, I'm just going to try to do something with what is now a bit of a wasted class. Anyway, to begin with, this poem is a little bit longer than what we've read previously, by about 2 pages. Totally doable, we covered that. Fair warning, the next one, I don't think you have a poem due for next class. I think it's a class after that. It's a poem called Beauty. It's longer than this one. Not way longer. I do think you can do it, but that's largely up to you. Anyway, just know about that. You'll need a little more time to read over that. What else to know about this poem? This poem is pretty important in the poems that we read. Previously, we read Old Men Playing Basketball. We covered that really well, like what that poem was about. We also read Little Boy. Both of those poems, probably in large part due to the fact that they're shorter, are much tighter in terms of their focus, okay? The titles are exactly what those poems are about, right? Granted, there's a little more going on, but that is what those are about. Body and Soul is about a Sandlot baseball game in Commerce, Oklahoma, as you covered. But a thing happens at that baseball game that is really important. Important enough to share the story, okay? And more than that, probably owing to the fact that this is a longer poem, you actually see way more of the world, the sort of place and time these people are from, okay? And obviously that's important in the poem because it's in the poem. but all of these poems are about the same kinds of people, the same kinds of places and times. So it can, in a way, help you think more about the other poems. So for instance, if you end up wanting to write about Little Boy, we talked about it a lot last time, and we may talk about it still. Ooh. Hi. What's your name, miss?
Hermione.
Hi. But we didn't talk very much about who these people are, right? It can be hard to know because it's what? Set in Kansas in the 40s, 50s, or 60s? Like how we all know a lot about Kansas in the 50s. You studied. Yeah, no, fuck no. No one has any idea. I don't, really. I have vague notions. That's it. This poem and the next one, extensive as they are, do a lot more world building and can help you know a little bit more about the other poems. So there's that. I guess the only other thing I want you to know about this poem, there's some really interesting lines, as there always are here. The speaker, and I tell you all this with a mind that hopefully you will read the poem if you haven't already, and you'll be watching for these things. But the speaker, at various points in the poem, is very concerned with facts and truth. Those of you who read, I don't know if you noticed, he says it a few times. He says it early, really early, right after the bourbon and Coke. Our fathers fall in love with their own stories, nuzzling the facts but mauling the truth. Now that's only 3 lines deep. I think we can handle it. What does nuzzling mean? Yeah, like anybody has a cat or something, you kind of nuzzle. This is something they do. So apparently these storytellers, these fathers, are nuzzling the facts, okay, but mauling the truth. What does maul mean here? Anybody know?
Pretty much a way to say that violently destroy.
Yeah, that's what bears do, to come full circle to our earlier conversation. A bear will maul you, just to give you an image, right? So that's kind of weird, though. Nuzzling the facts. We'll start there. What does that mean to you guys? What does that sound like these fathers are doing when they're telling their stories? Nuzzling the facts.
Making it fake, kind of. It's not necessarily the facts, but something.
No, I wouldn't. Nuzzling the facts. What does it sound like when you nuzzle something? What does that mean?
It's very lightly touching.
Yeah, well, but showing affection, right? Like, you only nuzzle things you like, generally. I read that as they get the facts correct. It's accurate, right? But, I mean, your point might have more to do with the second half, which is mauling the truth. Now, what's interesting about this line is that doesn't make any damn sense, right? Nuzzling the facts, but mauling the truth, that's incongruous. Yeah? The point I'm making to you is that's going to come up several more times in different ways. The speaker is going to say something about facts. He's going to say something about truth. It's going to keep coming. So it's on his mind. It must be important. He must be trying to figure something out as he's speaking to us. But you could sum up the sort of conversation he's having internally in this line. Somehow we have to square nuzzling the facts with mauling the truth. We have to make that make sense because he says it like it makes sense to him. You're freaking me out, Roman. What's funny?
I'm not laughing. I'm just like.
It's all good. But what's
I
up?
think I kind of get it. It's kind of like how people in the army or people who've gone through something,
Okay.
or even old dads might tell you something, and the facts are he was at this place doing this thing. But like mauling the truth is like, but he caught like this insane fastball. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking.
You're closer. We can't have a super in-depth conversation because nobody read the fucking poem. But You're closer, but I would say you're not quite there. You're very close. Anyway, so Roma's on the right track here. But again, know that when you go and read the poem, perhaps for the first time, that's a big part of the conversation. Facts versus truth. Apparently they're different somehow. Be thinking about that. Also, I would want on your radar several times, especially in the first stanza, but then it'll come back occasionally throughout. There's this question of sort of the socioeconomic reality for these guys. That's a fancy way of saying they don't have money, okay? But it's what does that mean to these guys? I'm gonna say a stupid thing and say, why does that matter? I mean, we understand on some level why that would matter. But I'm telling you, it matters a lot in this poem, the fact that they don't make much money. And you see it in different places, so it wouldn't be a hard argument to prove. But again, it's why is that significant? What does that mean for their lives? What does that mean for the way they see the world or themselves or anything like that? That's absolutely going on in this poem. And finally, check my notes. Yeah, finally. The last couple lines probably will give you some trouble. In most cases, with most of my students. And it's kind of great because we'll talk about it in class, you know, when they've read. That may be the last shot I take. I can't make promises, but those last lines can be a little bit confusing for different reasons. Know that they're important. They are. They're very important. In a kind of similar way to how the speaker talks about facts and truth and how they're related but different. He very clearly thinks they're different somehow, okay? He's going to say a similar thing about talent and genius, all right? And again, it's interesting in a poem where he's trying to drive a crowbar between, I think, what we would often assume are related ideas. It's interesting that he's going to do it right there at the end in a different way, like with different terms. So the point I'm making to you is that could be related. This conversation about facts and truth could have something to do with the vast gap between talent and genius. That's how he says it at the end of the poem. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do now. My plan is I'm going to talk to you for a couple more minutes. I know some of you are ahead of me in terms of getting the fuck out of here. We're going to talk for a couple more minutes, and then I'll let you go. Because as I've covered somewhat extensively by this time, we have very little to talk about. But I guess what I'm going to do, because I can't, this is the best option I can think of, okay? I mean that. We need to talk about this poem. It's important. I will post this video, which you guys don't have to watch unless you just want to because you're here. And I will make a separate video where I just talk at you like I'm doing now, but you can watch it wherever you want. You could cozy up somewhere or hang upside down, whatever, however you do it, you know, it's up to you. Where I try to, after you've read the poem, that's why we can't do it here, just to be clear. After you've gone and read the poem, maybe thought about it a little bit, I'll have another video that I keep as short as I can, where I try to walk you through some of the finer points, some of the things that are important, and most definitely the big picture stuff I've laid out for you here, okay? And just to reiterate that big picture stuff, facts and truth, it's all over this poem. Money and not having it, it's all over this poem. And then right there at the end, talent and genius and how they're different somehow. That's really only at the end, but of course in a way it's not. It's kind of a lot in the poem as well. I will talk to you, I'll talk at a camera, so I will talk at you about those things soon. The only other things I want to go over, just to make sure we're clear, you have homework for next time. There's no reading, so you got time to get caught up. There's no reading for next time. You do have a discussion board due. I think it's our first one, is that correct? That's an honest question. Okay. All that is you make a post, and there's some instructions on there that I'll talk about. And then I want you to, after you post, go respond to at least 2 of your classmates. Ideally, those responses would be more than like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Explain yourself, explain your thoughts, engage with their thoughts. Now, of course, we have to be kind to one another as much as we can. So at no point should you say that's the dumbest shit I've ever read, even if it is. Even if it is. On some level, adulthood, part of it is navigating that. You do that every day. You walk down the street, you see a guy, God, that guy's a fucking idiot. You can't say that, right? So don't do it here. It'll be an exercise in adulthood for you. Don't do it here. The discussion post itself, I can almost summon it verbatim. Yeah, I want you to attempt a thesis for one of the poems. And I mean attempt. This will be a working thesis. This will not be crushing it. This will not be absolutely what you will use in your paper. This will be a start. This will be a stepping stone, okay? So no pressure. But I think it would help all of us to start, just to get started on something, right? The rest of the discussion post after you attempt that thesis, sometimes I have to clarify this. I only want you to write about one poem, just so we're clear. Don't get weird. Just one poem. Whatever poem you choose, whatever thesis you write, then go to that poem, find me 1 or 2, or I guess 3 max, specific details from the poem. Lines or language or something like that you feel like supports your thesis in one way or another, right? And explain it. Break it down for us. The other way to think about it is maybe this is like a really early outline type of assignment, right? This is what I want from you. And again, you can engage with other folks in the class. You can look at what they're doing. Some of you right now, I'm describing the assignment and you're really upset. I have no ideas. I have no thoughts. That happens. Wait till some people post. Go see what they say. I'm not telling you to rip somebody off. I'm going to tell you right now, that doesn't go well. I'm not talking about plagiarism, by the way. I'm just saying if you try to make someone else's thoughts work in your brain, that doesn't go well. But what can and usually happens is you'll read someone else's work, 2 or 3 other people, and then you'll have thoughts. You'll realize, oh wait, I agree, disagree, or I think this other thing that's kind of related. It'll just come, right? Brains just work that way. So that's what this is about too. If right now you're deeply unhappy with the fact that we're going to actually start these papers, we're going to get it going next week. It's not a big deal, okay? We're going to get it going next week rather than 3 weeks from now or whenever it's due, okay? That's what this is for. So don't forget to respond to your classmates. Don't forget to actually give a damn when you respond to your classmates, just because that's a good thing to do. And like I said, I'll go home after this, and instead of God of War, I'm going to make a video about the poem that I hope you read. Does anybody have any questions for me before I let you go? Sweet. I'll see you next week. Please read the poem when they're assigned. Thank you.